What time is it, ladies and gentlemen? You guessed it. We're back with the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series here in Leipzig, Germany, as we make our way to crowning the first circuit champion of the year, who will be going to the Global Finals. There's a lot of money at stake, $101,000 prize pool, but that 20 grand first place spot, we are almost close enough to taste it. I'm Nathanius, joined by Wardy and Maynard on the desk, and boy, oh boy, these matches have been so damn good.
They've been damn good, Nate. I just did 3 best of 5s, casting it back to back. I was actually just saying, like, on Twitter that I had very little to no sleep last night, like between 2 to 0 hours. I'm not actually
Has the passion refueled you?
I've been running it on pure hypernol. My engine is still redlining. I'm still feeling great because of how great these games have been. So close. That laser comeback was really intense. I was feeling it.
The power crisis on Earth could be solved if we could just channel your passion into a nuclear reactor, Maynard.
2 or 3 more of me and the power problems of this planet are solved.
Amazing, amazing. Wardy, how have you been enjoying the games, the content?
The content's been just fantastic. I loved every part of it so far. Loved your hosting, Nate, and it's just been great. We had so many great games. I mean, it's just been fantastic. I think even though that last series was a pretty hard stomp, it was just amazing to watch Showtime play so well. Like, sometimes you see a 3-0 and it really is just, this guy was better than the other guy. But this was just Showtime playing superb from start through to finish.
Yeah, I actually really like when you're into like a round of 8 and there's still such a massive difference between one player and another. I think it's really
Especially since it's not like True's bad. He had quite a few good results last year. He made it to the global. He made it to the global playoffs. He made it to the global finals. True's a very good player, but Showtime just saying, I'm ready to really kick some ass this year and show that I belong at the top echelons of foreign StarCraft. So our next matchup is going to be Serral up against Nerchio. Nerchio, a player that we've seen very high up throughout the course of almost all of StarCraft 2 in the foreign scene. Nerchio's been a very good Zerg player for an extremely long time. And Serral, a player that we've had a lot of conversations about how he's come up. He's been very good, and we expect him to continue to rise up. He was very highly ranked, right actually next to Nerchio in the Team Liquid Power rankings. He was very, very high up there, of course, both of them right behind Neeb. But this is an opportunity to say, hey, I belong above you, and makes it fun.
Yeah, I mean, the momentum's really been all with Serral for the last few WCSs. He's been like getting a little bit closer, a little bit closer, a little bit closer, and then sort of fell off in Montreal. But, you know, he got really, really close. But Nerchio he's Mr. Round of 8, right? He's Mr. Semifinals. He makes it all the time. But this kid on screen right now, he's sort of the new guy. This is kind of like the new fresh blood coming up against the old king of Zerg, the old king of the region.
I think what's so crazy is that this is a rematch of the WSG EU Regional Finals, where Serral stomped Nerchio 4-0. And that was one of those 4-0s which is like, yeah, Serral is just better than you right now. Which is, you know, brutal to say, but he really was on that day. Now, Nerchio's had some time to practice ZvZ, and he's been looking pretty good lately, but not without his fault. His ZvZ record isn't perfect recently. It's been, you know, a little while since Nerchio really performed. You know, he did well at Austin, but that was quite a few WCS events ago.
Yeah, that's one thing that both Nerchio and Serral have in common is they lost finals to Neeb this year, in the last year. And, you know, we already know that Neeb could be the player waiting for one of these two in the grand finals if they make it there tomorrow, of course. Showtime, an equally dangerous threat. But it's interesting. We're getting into that place where it's the finalists all getting ready to go up against each other.
And a non-confirmed ZvZ final as well, which a lot of people were
well, thank God for that, Maynard. We do have the players ready to be introduced on stage for this Zerg versus Zerg. Anna, ready to bring in 2 people who lost to Neeb in championships last year.
Yes, and 2 people who play for the Swarm. We get to see who deserves to lead it. I like that as a Zerg player.
As a Terran player.
As a Terran player, I'm like, oh man, no.
Same here.
I know, I see you guys, I see you. But I am super excited to welcome both of these Zergs. I think it's gonna be a great story, as you guys mentioned, finding out who will serve us best. Will it be the long-time consistent player that we have in Nerchio, or someone who has been showing dominance in Serral? I'm super excited to welcome them and to watch them play and serve my Queen of Blades. So for now, please welcome Serral and Nerchio!
When we look at these 2 players, Nerchio's been around for a very, very long time. I would say in the last year or so, one of the hallmarks of Nerchio's has been that he is just very good all around. And we know that Serral is very good all around. Do we expect this to be a very straightforward match with ZvZ? I mean, we know that ZvZ is kind of aggressive in general, but mirror sort of styles, perhaps? Longer games?
I think they're both happy to play aggressive at points, and I think if it goes the distance, we'll see at least one aggressive build, like early gas pool or so, from each of them throughout the series. But I'm not sure if it's going to go the distance. Like, Serral just keeps having Nerchio's number. WCS Challenger a couple of weeks ago, Serral was the guy that knocked Nerchio out. 3 games to 0.
I mean, when you look at the numbers, Serral is heavily favored in this series. Like, not even just favored.
It feels so weird to say that.
It does. I mean,
Yeah.
this is King Artur we're talking about here. And,
Yeah.
You know.
Nerchio's no slouch.
No, absolutely not.
We're going to give the edge to Serral here, though.
Yeah,
I think so.
All right.
as well.
From what I hear, this match is ready. So without further ado, let's get into our second to last round of 8 match. It's going to be Serral versus Nerchio.
Thank you very much, Nathanius. We are indeed ready for our Zerg versus Zerg quarterfinal. I am joined by Zombie Grub. Are you excited for some roach on roach violence?
I am absolutely excited for some Zerg violence against each other. That's right, knock yourselves out. Now, we have been blessed with some really awesome series, including a really nice ZvZ only a couple months ago. So I believe these two players are going to give us a great best of 5.
Should be very good. We are kicking things off on one of the newer maps that we have in this tournament, Asset Plant. As we're looking at the main base of our Finnish Zerg player, spawning in the right bottom side. He is representing Ants. It is Serral.
And in the top left, as the red Zerg, he is Nerchio.
Now, even though Serral did indeed beat Nerchio, even quite convincingly a couple of times, I was casting that series that Wardy mentioned on the analysis desk as well. And that was a beatdown. That was the final of the WSG qualifier, but it was a very one-sided 4-0. And Serral simply looked better in almost every single aspect of ZvZ. Early game, mid game, and we very rarely even made it to the late game. And that's not because of Serral, but mostly because of Nerchio. But there is a little bit of hope on the horizon for Nerchio, because earlier this week, I casted the Into Extreme Masters Katowice qualifiers, and Nerchio looked phenomenal in that one. Serral did not make it through, as we had Showtime qualify, Uthermal qualify, and Nerchio was our only Zerg to make it through that European server qualifier, and he did it while beating Snoot, and also he beat Serral.
Yeah. I mean, Serral has lost a couple of key online qualifiers, or while he qualified, but then would lose, maybe the next round or two against Uthermal and against Nerchio. But I think that really offline, he's looking quite good. Online performances sometimes do tell the tale, but for me, it's like, is Serral really going to be consistent as we were hoping with his rise in the last 8 months or so? Or is Nerchio going to prove that even though he's old, he's good? Like, he's an oldie but goodie, as it really is the old versus new. Serral only really getting his name thrown out there commonly, and I want to say the last couple of years, where of course Nerchio has been here since 2010 from the very beginning.
Yeah, pretty much. He was one of the guys that was already attending those very first online tournaments when the StarCraft 2 just came out. And at first he was even playing random, played all the races, eventually decided to go with Zerg. And I think it's safe to say, looking at his career earnings, that he made a pretty wise decision. As I'm sure he would have had some success as a Protoss and a Terran as well, but he's done very, very well for himself with the Swarm.
We already have Serral throwing out a couple more Lings than Nerchio. They both should get eyes on their third bases. In this case, Serral sending his Lings over there. It is Asset Plant, the new map that we have, very, very large map. And a lot of our ZvZs weren't cast on the main stage. They're on the B stream, so I feel like it's one of the few times that I've seen this, as the maps are really new.
Yeah, Serral seemed pretty confident overall, even in his ZvZ. He didn't really seem to be shaken up about that loss in those online qualifiers. Maybe it's exactly what you said, like, yeah, drop a couple series online. Doesn't matter that much. What is going to happen here in the quarterfinals? Now, looking back at last year, though, a couple of times when Serral did not end up making it to the final where he fell against Neep, he did lose in a couple of ZvZ series. He lost against Elaser, and he also lost a series against Cruel. But that was last year, and I feel as good as Serral was last year, he's even better right now.
Well, this third base is under some fair bit of pressure. Of course, only slightly more lings for Serral means that queens and just time, really, will be fine for the third base. Nerchio seems confident enough to send his lings across the map, but did Serral catch that he should have?
Yeah, a little bit of a counterattack. Serral's obviously not crazy. He saw the queens were still left, but he didn't spot the Zerglings anymore. There are a couple of defensive banelings on the way, but they are a tiny bit too late. So Nerchio could perhaps strike first here and get a drone or two, but it's so difficult against Serral to get any drones.
Ooh, that's 4 banelings. Nerchio investing at least something into this, but almost 2 for 4. Not quite. 2 for 3, and then one other, 2 for 2 rather, and then one other popped. There's the last one popping as well. And Serral has deflected. Normal ZvZ here. They're kind of testing each other. I do look at some of these knife fights sometimes as just a test. Like, are you just going to fail because you don't make a baneling nest? Are you being greedy? And no, things are normal.
Yeah, every now and then you see the Zergs. I mean, Elazy jumps to mind what he did against Dark at the global playoffs. And that 2-player map, forgot the name of it, was quite a large one where he just skipped the baneling nest. He made a crazy amount of Zerglings and then he just straight up teched up. And Dark never knew it because, you know, sometimes you just don't check. You just assume that your opponent is playing as honest as you are. It's like, you've got a baneling nest, I've got a baneling nest. Now we can transition and make roaches, right? But obviously if you skip the baneling nest, you save out on some pretty valuable resources that should give you a roach advantage.
Yeah. I wonder how often we'll be seeing some. There are, of course, different openers than just going into the baneling fight around the third base, 2-base Roach Warrens, but it does feel often based on the map. So more lings come in here, and both of them are going into Roaches. One of the big strategies of ZvZ is one person. 3 banelings, just the lings don't respond. Serral has to respond now with a lot of lings. But he loses them and 5 drones.
Yeah, loses a couple of drones. We had another baneling running into the third base perhaps, but was not able to get the job done. I think Serral canceled the layer, right? Can we get that confirmed real quick? Because there was a layer on the way. Nerchio spotted this layer as well. The moment that the links died, Serral decided to cancel his layer. So it's safe to say there is a lot of commitment in the attack that Serral is about to make. His army supply is massive compared to Nerchio. Nerchio has to stop making drones right now, and he's not doing it.
This is exactly what I was going to get into before those banelings rolled in, which is the no layer, no upgrade all in with roaches, lings, and banelings versus someone who is investing into a lot more. But it looks like Nerchio now knows what's up. He's building a lot of spine crawlers. He stopped droning, but he also needs these roaches, and there's only coming out now.
It's safe to say that Nerchio is going to try to buy a lot of time for himself with a counterattack. There are Zerglings running into the natural, and he's got more lings coming in from the left side. But obviously, if Serral makes a couple of defensive roaches or perhaps a couple of defensive banelings, this is going to be a very, very difficult hold for Nerchio.
Already 8 drones going down. The spine crawler is popped, no cancel. A little bit of a scuffle is being cleaned up by Serral's reinforcements, and Nerchio just simply doesn't have any roaches. They are popping from the main base, and one spine crawler could be moved later, but Serral is already taking great fights with Nerchio coming from 2 different directions.
Yeah, I think Nerchio's got a couple of spines at his third base as well, but they're just too far away from the fight. He's going to try to reposition one of these spine crawlers right now, but Serral is on top of the production, and that's where you want to be. GG. Serral with some, tricks up his sleeve, perhaps. Picks up game number 1. Nerchio thought he got the scout in the main base. He's like, everything is fine here. You're going for a layer. I wonder if Serral wouldn't have lost those drones. Maybe it was more like a reaction, right? Like, okay, you scouted me and you did some economic damage. If we're both doing the same thing, I'm probably going to fall behind. Let's just switch things up and let's just go for this hatchery type of attack.
Similar question, like, would it have been because the scout came in, he was like, this is a perfect opportunity, I only just started, I didn't even bother starting +1, or was it something where, he was behind, or this was really his plan, he knew Nerchio's ling timing, which, sounds like really specific, but to be honest, I think this is one of the more important things about Nerchio, is that he's not, I want to say he's like not really a consistent scouter is how I'll put it, like he usually can read the very small changes in like the drone count, the ling count, something like that, and that's what it depends on. So maybe one ling to the layer once, but maybe not like a recheck. That usually shines a little bit more, I feel, in Nerchio's ZVP, but could be something that Serral noticed in his ZvZ.
Yeah, unfortunate moment, right? Because when it came to the pure Ling Bane phase in this game, Nerchio definitely held his own. I would say he even got the better hand of it. He got the upper hand there as he was able to get a couple of drones here and there and didn't really overinvest. He was never behind economically. So Nerchio must have been feeling quite good while tacking up, feeling, all right, this is actually going my way. So far, nothing is going wrong. And then suddenly you see a bunch of roaches running to the other side of the map. And since the bases are so spread out on Acid Plant as well, you can make static defenses, yes, but where do you put it, right? Obviously, Serral's not going to fight in range of 3 or 4 spine crawlers. Just tough. If Nerchio spots it 5-10 seconds earlier, starts making a couple of roaches, doesn't make those additional drones, we could have been looking at a different game.
Yeah, exactly. But it would have been really tough. There was nothing there that told him that there could be something up. Lair, Evolution Chamber, boom, you're good to go. Usually a macro game.
Those tricky Zergs, dirty since 2010. Some things will never change. As we are getting ready to hop into game number 2, we're looking at Blackpink, as we have been taking a look at the main base of the Finnish Zerg. It is Serral.
In the top right, taking a nasty loss, some mind games. It is the red Zerg, Nerchio.
Nerchio made it to the finals, of course, a couple of WCS events. He made it to the final back then in France, where he fell against Showtime. He made it to the final of Austin, where he fell against Neep. And Serral, of course, last year made his first final appearance at WCS Jönköping. But they're both still looking to hold that trophy.
I wonder how often, it is a best of 5, how often we might see these guys go for early pools. I feel like Nerchio can be aggressive, can be a macro player, but sometimes when I see him losing these ZvZs, he does flip the switch and go really aggressive. Lots of lings as opposed to just kind of the test amount of lings last game. I just don't know about early pools, but what do you think?
I mean, I think ever since the Overlords game became a little bit faster, I see it a whole lot less. Obviously, there's still a couple of crazy Zergs out there. You take a look at Bly versus Snoot, and you see Bly 12 pulling, while pulling his own drones as well, and building 4 spike rollers in the main base of Snoot. But that's Bly. Those are just Bly things. I think on this level between these guys, I honestly don't see it that often anymore, just because you see it all a little bit faster with the Overlords that got a little speed buff a couple of months ago. We might see it once on maybe a map like Catalyst, but I honestly don't think we're going to see it more than once.
Catalyst would be our 4th map if we got there. Nerchio, Neon, and Serral, of course, Abiogenesis. This is going to come down to more personal preference. It's a mirror matchup, but Abiogenesis being not just new, but also really, really short. I imagine ZvZ's quite uncomfortable.
I don't think there has been a single series where Serral did not veto a Biogenesis, so that would be quite interesting to know if we somehow make it to the grand finals, which of course will be a best of 7, because then if Serral would make it to the finals, which is not going to be easy, as first he has to make it past Nerchio, and then in the semi-finals, the winner of Snoot versus Special will be waiting for him. But if he makes it to the finals, he's gonna have to play a map that I think he has played once or twice up to this point.
All right, a couple lings coming forward here. Bailing Nest a lot earlier for Nerchio. I believe they grabbed their 3rds around their Bailing Nest last game, like Serral is doing right now. Right? The 3rd comes down, and then perhaps a safely timed Bailing Nest, but Nerchio also getting some lings. See if he holds that Z button down or goes back into drones.
Might see a few more. They always like to at least, test the waters a little bit, but I'm not expecting any crazy commitment here from either player, because they know they both respect each other. I think they have a lot of respect for the ZvZ skills that they both bring to the table, and making, like 28 or 32 Zerglings is just a little too much. 12, 14, even 16 lings, try to morph a couple of them into Banelings, try to maybe hide a couple of Zerglings and morph them into Banes. That's something you see almost every single game, but I don't really see them go past like 26. That would be quite ludicrous.
It does put Nerchio's hatchery quite far behind. I mean, there could be something as simple as I made 10 extra drones, so that's still less, or sorry, 10 extra links, that's still less drones, so their base doesn't matter as much, but I mean, if they are going to play a mirror game from now on, same amount of banelings, same amount of drones, then that hatchery could be very important. Serral actually getting on top of Nerchio's hatchery, seeing how much later it is.
There is a defensive baneling here for Arthur. Let's see if he can get the connection he's looking for. He gets 2 links. But this hatch is taking a lot of damage, though. Well, that second baneling definitely got the connection he's looking for. At the same time, Nerchio's running into the main base. He's like, all right, let me guess, there's going to be a layer, right? And it's not there just yet, but Nerchio just checking. Wants to make sure that he knows what's going on.
We have evolution chambers pretty quickly for both players. Sometimes you do see a super fast +1 and then they slap down the Roach Warren, but more often it's like kind of both at the same time. But I do remember a couple of Zergs, I don't know if it's Serral specifically, having a +1 Roach all in without a lair, like really tricky. Like, okay, you got one but not the other. I don't know if he's quite setting up for that, since they're both doing basically the same thing.
I feel like, for instance, Sort of is one of the Zergs who's a big fan of just the Roach Ravager all in, right, on hatchery tech as well. You see it quite often. He tried it in the GSL, saw it earlier in this tournament as well. Just make a bunch of links to reinforce while trying to make a couple of Roaches and Ravagers early on. But I think that this is heading towards a macro game. Obviously, Nerchio's going to be very, very careful about it. He keeps on scouting. He definitely learned his lesson after the previous game. He's like, hey, you know, that was not supposed to happen. I was doing all right. Runs into the main base, spots there is no layer yet, and obviously Serral being Serral will fire up the layer the moment the Zergling dies.
Yeah, seriously the moment. I thought it was the natural or something. No, it was the main base just right after it died. Now, Nerchio is also getting that lair, so just much faster +1 than last game would have had. Banelings hitting Lings, not too much else difference. I mean, their army supply, their worker supply. There could be a very big branch off, however. Well, actually, already 22 Lings on the way, but I was talking about that lair tech. Someone could try and put in a Spire.
That is a lot of Zerglings, though. That's and kind of an odd moment, right? On 48 workers as well to make all those links. As Serral does drop the Roach one in his main base. I am a tiny bit surprised by all these links, and I'm very curious to see what Nerchio is going to try to achieve. Maybe morph a couple of Banelings on the north side of the third base of Serral and try to go for a little run by, because he did see that you know, drones were already being transferred to this base.
I wonder as well. He's going to grab a Queen, it looks like, where these Banelings are done. Oh, well, okay, no, that Queen survives and the Lings get away. But it's really isn't that many more Lings that it should be scary for Serral. Nerchio is also going for +1, also going for the lair, which Serral just double-checked.
I wonder if Nerchio might go for a quick Spire if he tries to get that out, even though he does have missile attacks. Zergling skirmish in the main base is going to go in favor of Serral in the end there, but Nerchio managed to create a small economic advantage for himself. Even while this was all going on, for quite some time, Nerchio was at 65 drones already, while Serral was still catching up. Right now, it's obviously pretty damn even, but Nerchio has been mining a tiny bit more.
I was waiting for Serral to start that Roach speed. There he goes, only slightly behind Nerchio. So, you know, much faster +1 this game. A lot more Lings that are still having scuffles with each other, but nothing really a lot happening. Oh, okay, the Roaches bob, yeah.
A manual detonation there. Tried to get lucky, tried to hit the jackpot, but in the end he got nothing.
Yeah, so quite even, +2 for both players. No sneaky Spire yet. Serral does throw down. That is a 4th hatchery along with Nerchio in the same position on the opposite side. Hydraliston. First change up for our tech.
Yep, we've got double Evo on this side of Serral. This is going to make a lot of Roaches, probably quite a few Ravages as well. While Nerchio stays on, I want to say single Evo, but there comes the double Evo, but it's obviously quite a bit later. But he does rush out that Hydra then. We could potentially see Lurkers later on as well. Lurkers obviously fantastic in this matchup too, even though you got to avoid those corrosive vials, but someone like Nerchio is pretty good at it.
I do wonder if Serral is going to be going for Tunneling Claws. I mean, if you get those faster upgrades, if you really want to stick on Roaches, that is fine, and Ravagers do well. But there's also just this additional burrowed Roach tech that can really do a lot of damage. 3 in each mineral line will do so much economic damage, and even if they are attacking you, it might not turn into a victory. And I kind of feel like that's where Serral would be going, but he hasn't started it yet.
No, there's I mean, I think that would be an excellent choice, but at the same time, you can also just make mass Roach. The supplies have been very, very even throughout this game, but I think soon Serral's supply is going to explode because he's only making Roaches. And Roaches are obviously quite cheap. Hydras are expensive. Lurkers are very expensive units. So even though it's been very close in supply for the first 8 minutes of this game, I think soon you'll see Serral take a 30-40 supply advantage, as we have a little Baneling drop as well. This is something that Bly likes to do. And I saw Lambo also earlier today do it against Snoot. Did quite some damage, but the Roach fights is often much more important than killing a couple drones in this phase in the game.
That is pretty cool. I was checking to see if Serral had seen the Hydras, and not yet the Lurker Den, but he certainly saw the Hydras. Now seeing the Hydras again here. Wondering if he was just going to try and max out, as you were talking about, because mass Roach will beat a growing Hydra count. But it is onto Hydras as well for Serral.
Drop, perhaps. Can we take a look at the Nerchio's third base real quick on the right side of the map, as the Banelings were...
Nerchio's base.
Nerchio's base. Okay,
well, there's attack. So maybe that'll happen later. I think he has it set up and not doing too much. This attack does go into the heart of Nerchio's army, but Serral, I don't think he had enough Roaches. If he had maxed out, I think he does.
Well, that Baneling drop was actually still going on. So even though Nerchio didn't lose that many drones, he did lose quite a bit of mining time. But you're spot on. I mean, that was just not a good concave to run into, especially not if you're pure Roach. If you're pure Roach against somebody with Hydralisk as well, you better be flanking. You better be coming from multiple angles. Otherwise, you just don't run into a concave like that.
I wonder if he thought that his upgrade advantage would be big enough. He did have the +1 carapace at that time, was probably clicking on Nerchio's Roaches, but it wasn't. But Nerchio not quite able to counter up a ramp into a choke. Now we have Ravagers as well. He's also got to be careful with how he engages, but he has the superior tech. Once he gets a couple of lurkers made, he has a lurker den. I don't think he's made many yet. He's too busy dealing with Serral's attacks.
That hatchery is actually still a little bit bruised up from the early game, from those Zerglings that went to time. We got a decent roach skirmish in the middle of the map as well. And it seems like Serral took a commanding victory there. Now he's got more roaches running into the fort base as well. It feels like Serral's got almost more units everywhere. Nerchio is just kind of chasing something he can't catch.
I mean, he did go for the Hydras, and he's going for the Hydras upgrade, but he's still using Mass Roach to try and catch Nerchio off guard. We finally have some lurkers, but they actually have to be in position. They have to be burrowed to do very much. 5 drones go down. Nerchio does start falling in supply here. But the lurkers, if he ever got them into a really nice position, would just conquer the fight.
Most importantly for Nerchio, though, is he kept all the hatcheries alive. That one took some damage, and the base at 3 o'clock really took a lot of damage from before as well. But all of those bases are still up and running. And soon you do have to start worrying a little bit for Serral. Can he deal with the lurkers? Yes, of course, with Ravagers, with Serral. But, you know, for 2 seconds, even fighting in range of those spikes, and that's going to be game-ending damage.
I'm really quite surprised that Serral has yet to go for Burrow Tunneling Claws. He takes out a group of units over here. Nice trade. You know, find the attack over here. The lurkers go far forward, so they will be in the range of the hatchery, but they leave their army behind. So Serral takes the army fight to begin with. We'll see if he can save his hatchery. Doesn't really look that way. It's not being targeted yet.
The hatchery might fall because the lurkers are kind of committed to the cause anyway. A couple of roaches are fighting other roaches. The counterattack, however, by Serral, I feel is more devastating than this attack. And the hatchery lives as well. I feel like Serral is just getting victories left, right, and center at this point.
Yeah, Serral might be down 8 workers, but getting the hatchery and just taking superior army trades. I feel like this really wasn't supposed to be the name of the game, but it ends up being so. Serral, Mass Roach attacking everywhere.
It almost seems that Nerchio's playing a game that Serral is supposed to play with like little armies here and there, but that leaves those Hydras exposed. The Hydras are very powerful units if they're sitting behind roaches or maybe even sitting on top of a lurker. Then it becomes very tough, but Serral getting that fight there on the left side as well. He just runs into the side with that army. It's almost like an ambush, and those Hydras, they just fell incredibly quickly.
Serral just simply has the bigger army here. The lurkers aren't burrowed. They weren't done. And now Serral, I believe, is going to take a 2-0 lead. There we go. GG.
For the longest time, it felt even, or perhaps the tech advantage was even on the side of Nerchio. He had the stronger units, but the movement of Serral, the mobility of all those roaches as well, looking for openings non-stop. And it almost felt at one point Nerchio had enough of it. He's like, all right, now it's my turn. Now I want to attack. But yeah, he wasn't really well organized. I mean, his units were all over the place, and those Hydras were way too exposed.
It was like directly look at the way the fight's happening, you're like, okay, that makes sense. But then you really watch the entire game, and I am still a little confused. You know, Nerchio perhaps missing out on overlords around the map, even though it took a while for Serral to get Ravagers, and he was on with Hydras. He was attacked or surprised by many attacks, and then Serral adding that Hydralist in, and then never going for Hydras, adding the upgrade, and then never going for Hydras, but also not going for Burrow or Tunneling Claws, but still having the same effect with roaches, attacking everywhere.
Yeah, that first big fight on the top side of the map was quite questionable, and we saw Serral drop in supply quickly, but after that, the way he runs around, Serral is so fast, and Nerchio is absolutely not slow, guys. I mean, he's one of the top players in Europe, and he's been for years, pretty much since the beta of this game. But Serral in this moment, when he hits his rhythm, when he has, let's say, the 4 bases, the 65 drones, and he can play the type of game that he enjoys playing with a little bit of madness. I mean, some people thrive in chaos, but Serral thrives in almost everything, but the more he can do, the better the games go for him.
Right. Wonder if Nerchio can get some momentum back. Starting out 2-0. Was kind of due to like, oh, okay, you got me. Like, that lair was a fake, funny. But the second game was just straight up, Serral looked better. He made the right choice when it mattered.
That's how a lot of the games looked over in Barcelona just 2-3 months ago, where Serral just often felt one step ahead of Nerchio. Now, Nerchio did have, once again, he had a fantastic week. He qualified to the Intox 3 Masters World Championship in Katowice, and he did it by beating some amazing players. Not just Serral, not just Snoot, but he also took out Elaser, a player that he also has lost against a couple of times in the past. So his ZvZ is on point, but is it on point enough to somehow win 3 games in a row against this man who's spawning on the right top side of Eastwatch, hailing from Finland? It is Serral.
And in the bottom left, he absolutely needs your cheers. He's down 2 games in this best of 5. It is the red Zerg, Nerchio.
This is a massive map, right? This is probably the biggest map that we've had in quite some time. And it makes me wonder, are we going to see Roach heavy plays here as well? Obviously, it's going to take a long time for Roaches to make their way across the map. I don't think you're going to see any hatchery type of attack on this map. It feels like it just almost takes a little bit too long. Too many rocks as well in the middle of the map. But perhaps we're going to see some good old Zergling +1 melee style. I think that would be quite fun. Or maybe we'll see some 2-base Muda. I don't know. I would like to see something weird here, because I feel like for just Roaches to run across the map, you're gonna have a pretty tough time making anything happen.
Yeah, this map, it doesn't look much like Sequencer, and I know that seems to be kind of like a weird thing to mention, but it kind of in a way reminds me of Sequencer. A lot of pathways, not really a lot of con-capable areas, and then your bases are really in this like organized but not really easy to take fashion. So you have this third that's way over there, and absolutely, like, you know, these Ling heavy styles with an upgrade could do very well, counterattacking, running by. And Mutas could do well, hovering over some of the dead space, just going in between third and fourth. I would expect this to be a different game. You know, Mutas, Ling, something like that, but these guys also seem fairly comfortable going into Roach.
I can already see myself losing games on this map because I'm having too much fun putting a Zealot on those train tracks and running down. And before I know it, there's 12 Zerglings in my base. But it just seems like a very fun thing to do. I wish you could slide over it for a little bit or something.
That would be fun. There's actually like a cart on there you can get on.
You can put your units in it. They can be transported to the other side of the map.
Yeah.
Like a Zeppelin in Warcraft 3. Transportation. Let's go.
Well, nothing to start things off weird here. Of course, a very large map. Early pools would be quite difficult to do. Last game, I kind of forgot, but it started off a little bit weird. Like, Nerchio was a little scared of Serral. He went for that 2-base Baneling Nest instead of grabbing the third. And in this case, I suppose the third is this gold, which is much more attainable than on some of our, like, I think Acid Plant has one, but it's very far out there. Nerchio takes the normal Mineral 1.
He's gonna scout it quite quickly though with his Zerglings. There's an Overlord at 3 o'clock. So right now Nerchio knows, okay, you're not on 3 bases yet, but Nerchio probably has a very strong idea that, well, if you're still not taking it, that means you're probably taking the gold base this early on. Now, I don't think this is something that should really panic Nerchio. I don't think he should be like, oh my god, I better make 1,000,000 links and try to win this game immediately. He spots it. I think it's one of these things that you kind of have to ignore it. It takes a long time to transfer drones here anyway, and perhaps just sit back and try to just defend if Serral decides to be aggressive.
Unfortunately,
ooh, those links are trapped, I think.
They are trapped, but there was too many of them, so they escaped. That worked. But I was gonna say, unfortunately, okay. 330 lair for Nerchio here. I was going to talk about how sometimes you see these third bases, either they're very, very quick, like 3 hatch per 4 pool, or they're like a gold base, and you're like, well, I guess he's going to get the superior macro, but then they use it to just all in you and attack. So it can be hard to decipher what Serral wants to do, but it's Nerchio who's going to take command of this game. If he survives to lair, 6 lings go down to a Baneling, not too bad.
And we also had a couple of links sneaking on the left top side of this map for Serral. I think you're spot on, but I think if I'm Nerchio right now, I start getting a tiny bit worried. Since this map is so large, and now you know your opponent has a gold, it's hard to cover all the tracks with an Overlord, right? There's always going to be some dark space on the map. So I think even though Nerchio is going up for a very quick layer, does that give him the confidence to just drone up? I'm not sure.
I think it's coming around that time where he's like, well, this would have been the Massling one, or this would have been the Massling one, so I think I feel safe. And he will be trying to get that scout to confirm, but the lair is done, and the Spire, I would assume, can start. I really like this choice by Nerchio, but just because it might be the superior choice, we really don't know. Eastwatch is a brand new map. Doesn't mean that Serral has to die to it. If he gets any scout whatsoever, he'll be able to get up those 4 crawlers and get a nice defense.
Serral is going to run across the map one more time with a couple of Zerglings. As Serral's playing a very normal ZvZ. He's getting Roaches, and now he probably feels like, hey, this is getting a little bit too easy. Why are your units not in position to protect any of your drones? The Nerchio's going to morph a few more defensive Banelings. So even though I feel like this Spire is very quick, of course, by Nerchio, he doesn't have a great gas economy. I feel at best we're going to see like 5-6 Mutas by the time that this Spire is done, especially if Serral is going to keep on forcing him to morph more and more defensive Banelings.
Serral, he is making a couple more lings at the same time, making a couple more drones, so he's getting that economic advantage. He's obviously going into Roaches. He had that +1 for a very long time, but You're right. Nerchio just won't have that many mutas to make.
I can also see Serral make a few more queens, perhaps. We saw another queen was on the way, it just popped. And maybe even go for a Nidus. This is such a large map, and maybe he doesn't want to be bothered with defending against Mutalisks with Hydras. Maybe he just decides to throw up a Nidus network. That's, of course, a great way to get units across the map very quickly. But as we see Roach speed on the way as well, that becomes less and less likely.
Nice attack. It's a queen as well as a scout. And then attack on the fourth base, too, is no cancel. That's a kill. Serral, I'm not sure he's really run into this correctly enough. Like, he might be a little weirded out by that third base, not ever having any drones, but he never got close to the natural, so he couldn't even see if there was that typical Roach Warren Evolution Chamber out the front. And he's not going to be hitting at any specific timing to come before mutas, which is really what you have to do. Otherwise, you're the one that's got to build the Spore Crawlers, got to get the creep for the queens, and get the Hydras.
I think it's spot on. I mean, you look at it right now, it's 13 Roaches, but it's simply too late, right? We've seen a lot of games where Roaches run across the map and the mutas are all the way done, and the muta player frantically throws up a couple of Spine Crawlers, but that's not the case at all. There's really not much that Serral is going to be able to do with his Roaches other than defend. I mean, he's sending them across the map, but the mutas are already out.
This is going to be tough. I mean, those Roaches can be great time buyers. They take a long time to clean up, even if Lings help. But this is a tough decision because the Spore Crawlers weren't done. But it was done enough, I suppose. The mutas are coming back now. The Nidus room goes down. Serral's going to commit to this. He's continuing to make queens, and that will be his anti-air. The Roaches do buy some time. The Spore Crawler was just fast enough, and these Roaches will do something. They don't have to win the game here because that's what the Nidus is for.
Yep, I do like this though by Serral, because I feel that otherwise it would all just be a little bit too late. I feel like Nerchio would just dominate the next 2-3 minutes in this game. These Roaches do fall very quickly though. There's going to be a few more Roaches coming in from the north side, but Serral also has to be careful that he doesn't lose too many Roaches, because then Nerchio can just make a bunch of Zerglings and dive on top of the Nidus network.
That's absolutely true. If you come out with 6 queens but only like 4 Roaches, it's not that scary.
Not at all.
His fourth base is up. It's not going to be used. I'm sure Nerchio was scouting initially for a Nidus when he got those Lings in, but it was a little bit later. This might come as a complete shocker. He's cleaning up a couple of Overlords, but the Nidus Storm is still on the way. It's not in the main base, which it could have been outside the natural.
Is there enough anti-air though? I think these queens don't have that much energy, and I don't think the queen count is overwhelming. I mean, 6 queens against 15 mutas, that's not enough. Serral's gonna need Spore Crawlers. If he doesn't get Spore Crawlers, Nerchio can just straight up kill the queens.
A couple of transfuses, but not even all the queens are out here. The creep is just not that far. They took quite some time, and they are being targeted down. All the transfuses have been used. 2 extra pop, but they don't come with anything. They just come with some okay-ish DPS, but not good enough.
There's just simply not enough anti-air coming out of that Nidus network. I love Nerchio using a few Banelings as well to blow up that second Nidus network. And as long as there are no Spore Crawlers here for Serral, I think he's gonna have a pretty tough time. 3 queens is simply not gonna be enough. Serral is sniping the hatchery on the north side though, so it's not all for nothing, but is that really enough? I think it's safe to say that Serral was hoping for a lot more than just a hatchery.
I think so. That was going to be my question too, though. Is this going to be a game where you can macro out of? That fourth base is running. I don't even know, like, he's not going to attack it soon, so Spore Crawlers can come up. But with mutas not dying, basically, I don't think many died at all, they're just going to take control over the map. So while Serral kills the third base now, Nerchio could maybe double expand later. Oh, another cancel here. He didn't clean these up.
What I'd love to see from Nerchio is just keep on making mutas, which is exactly what he's doing. Don't stop and split up your mutas, right? You can defend with 7 or 8 and send the other 7 or 8 mutas that you have to the other side of the map. He's going to chase down a couple of Roaches that are still popping via the Nidus. I think he's finally shut it down. But I think he doesn't have to keep all of his mutas at home. He can leave a couple at home. Nerchio has an overwhelming amount of mutas, while there was 0 anti-air on the other side of the map. Now there are 7 Hydras on the way, but obviously these Hydras are spawning from 4 different hatcheries. They're going to be coming from all over the place.
Yeah, this is going to still be a tight defense, but Serral did buy a lot of time. That's why I kept sending Roaches through. They're not really going to be helpful. Sometimes they can protect the Hydras if Lings come with this too, but he's also been keeping track of the Lings. There's not many. It really is all mutas for Nerchio right now, and he's taking on the Spore Crawlers. He isn't afraid of a couple Spore Crawlers and a single Hydra, so his fourth base seems to be forfeit.
Yep, I love it.
Oh, no.
Nerchio didn't second guess himself there. He just went on top of 2 Spore Crawlers and a couple of Hydras. All these Hydras are in movement. This is exactly what I meant. They're coming from all over the place, and it's just really hard to defend against that many Mutalisks.
That was pretty odd, to be honest. I mean, there's a chance that with 2 Spore Crawlers and 4 Hydras per base, the mutas don't want to take that on, but he must have had him hotkeyed or something to bring them all into a sporeless area and then let them die off like that.
A few meters did go down already because these sports obviously do have a lot of damage output. Serral is still sort of keeping this even economically, as he did take down 8 more drones as well with his roaches on the other side of the map. Mulas are still looking for a stranded Hydra here and there. Serral does get the snipe. It is absolutely amazing how Serral is doing this. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It feels on paper he's so far behind. Tech-wise he's behind, map control-wise he's behind, but he's still getting damage done. And I think he has survived the scariest phase in the game.
I think that's one thing that's missing is that when you have mutas, you usually have a lot of lings, even upgraded lings, but upgrades are not a choice for the ground army. But the lings help take care of those roaches, so you focus entirely on the mutas, and you realize when you're losing them, when you're committing too much, and you still feel safe. Without those lings, those roaches did so much.
This time, I think if all of the Hydras on pop, I think Serral will actually have enough anti-air. Can we take a look at the gold base of Nerchio, please? Because there... I thought there was a Nidus going down. Am I crazy?
You know, I thought there was 2. And now I'm really questioning for both crazy.
No, I definitely think that's possible, and that there was a Nidus. So I believe in both there, Jess. Now, I think maybe a couple of Banelings were in position for Nerchio, but I didn't even hear the sound, so that's really odd.
Yeah, well, we're gonna just go ahead and walk past that. Oh, it died. There you go. Thanks, Observer. It did die. But right, I didn't hear the sound either. At least we confirmed they weren't crazy at this moment in time. So that was shut down, but I suppose the logic behind it still works out. You're talking about the Hydras. There's enough of them to pop out. There are enough of them to protect each other. And I was just talking about how there were no lings for Nerchio. There's also not a lot of Banelings, which usually take on an army exactly like this.
I am amazed by how Serral has made this happen. How many drones has Serral killed in this game? Nerchio's still killing a couple of workers as well. It's 33, but it feels it's only been a couple of times. Can he split against the Banelings? It seems like the answer is yes so far. And I think that Serral's done it. What an amazing game by Serral.
An amazing game. Serral takes it 3-0. Tricky builds, and then he almost gets tricked in the final game, but no, not enough. His roaches continue to do damage. The mutas were dealt with at the last second, just barely enough Hydras. Nidus Worm kind of took care of itself. Like, what a weird but awesome game.
I love the way that Nerchio played the first 6, 7, 8 minutes of the game. It really felt like he was ahead, that he picked a better build. But Serral was relentless with his harass. Always sent a couple of roaches, a couple of drones here, a couple of drones there. And, you know, it wasn't the 33 drones. Those were not 20 drones at once. Like, no, it was 4 here, 4 there. But he just kept Nerchio in a low economy. And he kept him so busy defending against all those roaches that he bought enough time for himself to get Hydras out. And Serral wasn't super rich, guys. That was like a 45, 48 drone Serral. He did, of course, have the gold base. When the first Hydras died, I thought it was going to be tough, but damn. Another beautiful ZvZ series by Serral as he's on the stage with Anna. Can't wait to hear what he has to say about that series.
I can't either. Like they were saying, they thought it'd be tough, but it didn't look tough for you, was it?
I think it was fairly tough. I think the score can lie. Like the last game was very tough. I think I got a bit lucky with some bailing hits in the previous 2 games, but obviously I'm really happy with this result.
Yeah, I would think so. Tell us a little bit about this mirror matchup, about ZvZ. What is some of the most important things to do well?
I think it's a lot about scouting and just hitting the D key, and that's basically it.
That's all? Awesome. So now, as you move forward in the tournament, you're moving into the semifinals. How does that feel to be there?
It feels great, like last time. I was expecting to... I'm expecting to get to finals at least. I have been preparing really hard, and I hope it pays off.
You're going to face the winner of either Special or Snoot. Do you have a preference?
I would like to play a ZvZ, but if I get Special, then I'm fine with that as well.
You feel confident against both those players?
More against Snoot, but also against Special I feel a bit confident, but it's a 50-50, I think.
Well, you seem to be playing very well, and I'm sure you'll keep it up. Hope you get lots of rest tonight. Guys, let's hear it one more time for Serral. Back to you at the desk, Nate.
Thanks again, and wonderful as always. Serral taking a dominating victory over Nerchio. Just flawless play and saying he would love to play another ZvZ and gobble up Snoot on his way to the grand finals.
Yeah, I mean, clearly ZvZ is Serral's bag here. He has a mastery of this matchup that no one else in Europe seems to have. I fully expected this to be a 3-0, I'll be honest. Nerchio put in a really good fight, though. Serral didn't bring up a really good point. The score can lie. Game 2 and 3 were extremely close. Nerchio looked to me making some really sick decisions. The mutas were really putting in work for him as well. But just Serral, man, he was patient, waited for a big ball of Hydras, went for the A move.
He's just too good, Wardy.
He's just too good. You said it yourself. I mean, it really is kind of crazy, right? Like, every single trade he goes into with Nerchio, he comes out with a couple more drones or a couple more drones killed or, you know, a few extra lings remaining. I just feel as though there's not a single point in these games where Nerchio is like getting the best of the trades, and I think it's just all those little things that eventually add up. I mean, game 3 was for a moment, just like, oh, the mutas are doing good damage, it's getting them, and so I was like, yeah, but that's fine, because that's what mutas meant to do, and, you know, then I get my Hydras up, and I don't die to Banes, and wow. Yeah. Masterclass of ZvZ.
Always interesting to hear the Zerg player say that he won because he was just really good at pressing that D key, getting the drones out. I mean, it's funny, right? But like, it comes often so down to that balance of being able to put out the army versus the workers for the Zerg player, and I love that somebody that plays at such a high level just simplifies it down to such a core thing.
Mate, it's not all about hitting the D key. Sometimes it's about not hitting the D key. Like, you can't hit the D too hard.
That's
Sometimes
true.
We're
We're getting real philosophical here. Let's take another look at the bracket as we continue to have our wonderful conversation about whether or not you're going for the Ds. We have Special versus Snoot as our last quarterfinal coming up to determine who will face off against Serral tomorrow in the semifinals. Will it be another ZvZ or will it be a ZvT? He would rather play against Snoot, though. We've clearly seen he knows how to play Zerg versus Zerg.
Unfortunately for Serral, I think he's going to be facing a Terran. I feel like Special's going to be pretty strongly favored, in my opinion, against Snoot.
I think it's going to be a super close series, but Snoot's ZvT has been insane lately. I think Snoot's going to take it.
Ooh, all right. Glad to see a little bit of disagreement here between the boys on the desk. We do have one more match to bring to you tonight, ladies and gentlemen. It is going to be a Terran versus Zerg in Special versus Snoot to close out the round of 8. Special, well, he's every time they pull that pick drop, I'm just like, he just
it
ready.
makes me chuckle. Yeah, he's a cheeky boy.
He is too comfortable playing in the WCS. He's been competing for too long. He needs to be less comfortable.
We need to rein him in.
Yeah, he's got to rein it in. We'll see if he makes his way to the semifinals. Coming up next is our final match of the night, Special versus Snoot.